Hello, welcome. I am Halcyon here with DhammaSeeker, and we are gonna check in on Black Rock Desert plans, including the, we'll get to it. First of all, welcome, hello.
Thank you, it's great to be here.
So we've known each other through Dust and digital for a while. What can you give me your, like, when did you first go to Burning Man, and what are some things you've been involved with?
Sure, and I'll rope you into it because you were a small part of my early start. I first got the bug in 2019, or no, 2009, sorry. And when I caught the bug, it was way too late to do anything about the event that year. And I had done enough research, like you got to plan, or it's advisable to plan. Some people don't, but I'm a planner, and that's kind of the topic of today's talk. And so I spent the year between 2009 and 10 studying online, reading a bunch of ePlaya stuff. Of course, I came across images of you. I had not come across your videos yet, but some still images. So like in retrospect, I had seen pictures of you, and I'm sure some fuzzy pink boot warmers, or that pictures. And in my initial mind, I was like, well, look at this cocky bastard, but then you finally get out there and you meet you, and it's like, well, it's a total apply lesson that don't judge a book by its cover, or at least your interpretation of the cover. Usually everybody is a beautiful individual, whether they look beautiful on the outside or not. Just spend a minute and talk to them. And so my first year was 2010. I went solo, loved it. It was the best and worst experience at the same time. And then in 2011, formed a very small camp with some friends from kind of all over. And we have been a small theme camp since then.
Nice. And am I remembering incorrectly, or are you involved with the Temple Guardians?
Oh, that was part of my initial draw, or at least, the propaganda is volunteer. That's one of the key parts. And the Temple Guardians group is one of the groups that spoke out to me the strongest initially. I did volunteer with them in 2010 through 2014. For a couple of those years, I was their volunteer coordinator, and it was an awesome experience. And then I needed to leave for personal reasons. And then since 2016, 2016 was my last year to attend, because family reasons, we had some kids in high school that we need to get out of high school. And so 17 through 19, we were in Camp Envy, learning at home.
Gotcha.
Those years. And of course, everybody was in Camp Envy last year. Well, most people.
And that's a good segue. So what is your, do you have plans to return to Black Rock Desert this year?
We do. Back in 2016, our initial plan was to return in 21. That's when the family plans would have allowed it. And after this year, we are vaccinated and feel more comfortable with the evolving knowledge situation with the pandemic, that we think it is a reasonable risk, we'll call it, to go out there this year. It's never, even outside of a pandemic, it's not a zero risk environment. And this year will be no different in the sense of it will be a risky environment, but just in different ways.
Yes, that was actually something that I had a conversation yesterday with Angelo, and he was highlighting some of the danger factors of last year. And some of the comments that came up in response to it was that, yes, those things were dangerous, and there was a kind of a real Wild West kind of feel back last year, but that this year should be, while some similarities, should be significantly different, and that there is a significant increase in theme camp presence this year and organization, which is kind of the topic of the day. So one of the two like base foundational organizational pieces that I've seen and discussed is the presence of a 24-foot man that's being brought out, and then a map that allows people to say where they're from. So can you speak to the map a little bit?
Sure. So since 2014, I've been on the little, very small volunteer group, spearheaded by a guy named a guy on the Playa named Crockett, and you've probably seen posts by him on Facebook and Reddit, because he's kind of our main hype man for the unofficial BRC map project. And that would be where theme camps that ask for placement typically will get an email in early July with a vague, or not a vague, but a coordinate, but it's like, 9 and C or 10 and K, but it's not super precise as to what exact piece of land that the placement team has placed the camp, but it's close enough where we would put pins on a Google map for the camps that volunteered their information. This is all a community-driven map. And it was a way to let theme camps kind of see who their neighbors were likely going to be. It was not a guarantee. Placement says, nothing's guaranteed until you show up and we actually say, here, park here, because sometimes things change. And but we have enjoyed doing that. It's been useful for camps to, find out their neighbors in advance, maybe talk about sharing resources if they needed to. And it's, you might call it performance art or folly or a waste of time. All of this is true. I mean, it's just something we've been doing. And then for the happening this year, the Plan B Facebook group, some people were just naturally discussing, well, we should have a map. And I was assuming, and they actually, somebody in a Zoom chat mentioned the unofficial map from years past. And I chimed in saying, yeah, I'm on that team and happy to help, but I was assuming that somebody else had was already running with it. Well, no, what happens when you speak up? Well, then now it's your project. So I'm happy to pick up that baton, and we have a small team working on it this year. Totally community driven. It is not placement. It is not a reservation system. I view it kind of as a place to put an intention down of, I have a camp. I intend to be here or near here, or maybe next to this other camp. And we do have a spot where people can list the dates where they anticipate to be there. Most people are kind of in the traditional burn week. Some people are planning for the traditional build and burn week. I just placed the camp. I don't know if it was intentional, but they're coming and going like 2 weeks before. So, it's open BLM land. That might be what happens. And that's great. We're collecting information from people who want to volunteer it. And it's totally the same kind of thinking of the prior unofficial BRC map, that people can see who might be there, who might be their neighbor, and strike up some conversations if they feel it's right. Or kind of unlike a traditional year, you have more control over choosing your neighbors, or maybe you want to explore a different, like maybe you've seen a camp that maybe it was traditionally placed in a complete different sector from you, but you liked the vibe, and hey, let's camp next to them this year and see if we like each other. All of that's kind of up in the air.
Cool. I love it. I'm thinking, I remember my first few years, I remember, I don't think my camps were placed. I don't know if there was placement back then, but we just like, we would say, hey, we're going to try to be around, 3 o'clock and GH, somewhere around there. And we would just, we'd kind of drive around, or people would leave notes at center camp of like, this is where we eventually, found a place. And so this is kind of the updated version of that, and in advance saying, we're going to try to be here and we'll see you there. I love the distinction. It's not placement, it's not a reservation, and it's not an organization. There's no authority behind it. It's like an open spreadsheet that anybody can, throw their information on. Which I think it's in my mind, it goes into that place of like, it allows for organization, but doesn't slip it into that of an organized event. Like there's
Exactly.
yeah, there's no if a bunch of people were going to go to the river, and we say we're going to be here's about the place we're going to meet at the river, that's not an organized event. That's a bunch of people coming to a certain place and doing their own individual camping. I know that's one of the challenges that people are kind of like scared about. Like, hey, the more we organize, the more are we potentially, poking at BLM and crossing the line into an organized event.
Right. And just to make it further, beat the dead horse, I view it as planning, but not organizing. And the old adage of, people make plans and God laughs. So I have a plan of arriving at a GPS coordinate and maybe setting up camp. But if I show up there and there's already an entire development there, there's no recourse. There's also no problem. I just go 300 feet to the other side, and that's the key.
Right. No
Yeah.
one can come find you and say, hey, can you tell them they need to move because they're in my spot?
Right. There's no people in golf carts and blue flags, and there's no rangers to mediate your property line dispute. Yeah.
And the other thing that Angelo pointed out yesterday is that there's also nobody that will let you say this area is reserved for art, that or you can't drive over here. Now, within certain groups, you might all agree that that's what you're going to do, but you can't enforce that upon anyone else because we have a very fragile social contract that is fully optional.
Right.
So are there anything that have you ever been out there when it's not Burning Man?
I have not. I've just seen, pictures and videos of other people who go out during off times of the year. I'm looking forward to it. I personally really wanted to go out this year, event or no event, though I'm personally hesitant to go out and be like the only thing for 5 miles completely alone. That's a little more vulnerable than I'm personally comfortable with. And so that's why I'm drawn to this coalescence of camps situation. There's totally going to be the same crowd that was out last year. And most, I don't know, a lot of those people are going to be nowhere near this coalescence because their whole jam is to be pretty remote and far apart from other people. And I think that's fantastic. There's the main Plan B coalescence. There's already a little, they call themselves the Rogue Bird Township. That's a little bit to the south, but the far east side of the playa. And Spanky's Wine Bar is planning over there. And they've got a smaller gathering, but that sounds like it's going to be a destination too. So, and there's probably even other coalescence of camps that I'm not aware of yet that are going to be out there too. This is not the only game in town for sure.
That's cool. So that's a cool idea that it's like a petri dish, and things are densities in different areas, and all sorts of stuff happening. That's cool. Well, that's actually helpful for me to visualize too. I guess yeah, I guess it is a Wild West kind of feeling. It's just that you can live out on the prairie, or you could live in a town.
Right. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And I've seen, internet chatter that some comment somewhere is like, well, yeah, I'm going to be camping at the best spot on the playa, but I'm not even going to tell you where that is. I assume it's like 15 miles up north somewhere, maybe next to a nice pool of water. If you find out, let me know.
So just because it seems to be what everybody asks me about, or the conversation goes to almost immediately, do you have any thoughts on or any collection of wisdom or information that you've seen so far regarding porta potties or toilets?
I can only speak for myself. I'm planning on being 100% self-reliant. That kind of back to my original draw to Burning Man. Or in those surveys, they ask you like, what's your favorite principle or something? That's either my number one or number two. I totally vibe on self-reliance and self-containment. Even in my small theme camp, we have virtually no shared resources. I mean, we're just people camping next to each other. So we're not in a luxurious situation sharing a bunch of meals or water use, but we're having a great time. And so for the porta potty, everybody in my small group is bringing bucket toilets, and that's our plan A. A bad pun, our plan B is I have reached out to a potential neighbor camp who has, expressed interest in trying to get an arrangement with a porta potty provider and saying, we would love to help with that effort if that's possible, but that is a plan B. We don't even know, or from what I've seen so far, nobody has 100% said this company is 100% gonna do this. And so we're gonna be capable for, taking care of ourselves. And I think that's what every camp out there needs to be doing. Otherwise it will become a problem. And, kind of the way I view in a normal event year, I kind of view the ticket price to get into Black Rock City as a porta potty fee. And then everything else I experience is gravy on top.
Right.
Except this year, there's no Black Rock City and there's no ticket. So there's no porta potty. So
I like that. Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, well, you just said it very well. I think that, right, there's that confirms what I feel like I've been trying to gauge from a bunch of places, that there's no clear, this is how you could get a porta potty if you want one, or how you could reserve one. That's still people figuring that out. Bucket should be everybody's backup plan or main plan. And then if you want to organize around a communal porta potty, people are still figuring that out. I keep trying to figure out, I'm like, wait, so you bring one in on a trailer, and then you leave it on the trailer, and then you drive it someplace full of crap? Is that how you do it? Like wow, that sounds like a bummer car to be tailgating,
Yeah, one of the guys in the Facebook group says, you really don't want to be, he said, you don't even want to be the car towing of an overfull porta potty on a trailer, on the road. That's just not a good situation. So.
I was all excited about this. Oh, that'd be fun to figure out how to do a porta potty. And now I'm like, man, a bucket sounds way easier. At least in the what are you gonna do afterwards? But luckily we've got time to figure that out, and there is the bucket backup. I'm so grateful and appreciative of your work on the map so far, and thank you for volunteering, for being the arbiter of all disputes having to do with land. That's very gracious of you to agree to do that. Oh, wait.
Right.
And anything that else that you want to share as far as make sure people forget this, or you should know this, or anything that we forgot to talk about?
Just to beat the horse, have a plan for your poop and leave no trace.
Radical self-reliance.
Yeah.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you in the desert.
Yes.
And what's the URL again?
BlackRockDesertCamps.com.
Boom. We'll see you at home or someplace else. No pressure. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.